play football for the Irish.
You're nuts.
What is it to make a sports movie, and what is it supposed to entail? Do sports movies have merit? Are they just supposed to be recreations of the feelings that the sport provides? Are they vehicles for some type of messaging? Sitting down the other day, I decided to put on 1993's Rudy. Considered by many as one of the best football movies of all time, Rudy has had a special place in my heart as well. As a teenager, football became the main focus of my life. While I still had to get good grades and behave, football was this fun and exciting thing I got to be a part of. It's where my personality got molded and I learned how to really deal with things. It's where I learned to handle pressure, anxiety, and work with others. I got to make real friends and feel a respect and camaraderie that I hadn't before. Plus, I stunk. I was not a good player by any means. I worked out a lot and really pushed myself, but I was short, limited athletically, and shot hand-eye coordination. Yet, I stayed with it. Rudy spoke to me in such a specific and touching way. Sure, it's not the best movie in the world, nor is it even the best movie about football. That's probably Remember the Titans. Still, it's worth noting how these stories make us feel, and how the diverse collection of stories in movies can have these profound effects on us. We remember the details, the arcs, the moments from movies we saw decades ago. So, why do we remember them? Is it just about great storytelling, or do you have to have some prior investment in it? Could you still feel how I felt about Rudy if you had never watched a game of football before? How does a movie about football work? As it goes, football and film are two relatively new items in the zeitgeist of popular culture. Just as soccer and literature can be traced back thousands of years, American football and film have really only been around for the past 150 years or so. The game and art form we know today were really products of the post-Depression era, where professional teams became established and the film business really started to become a business. While football may be the most popular American sport now, baseball was really the dominant sport in pop culture throughout the first half of the 20th century. A lot of cartoons, comedies, and biopics surrounding baseball were the popular sports movies of the time. Then you had boxing movies, a hockey movie or two, and then the landscape shifted to football in the 90s. A lot of that shift is just a market correction. Football became increasingly more popular as baseball became less fun and less marketable over time. However, I believe that the sports themselves made that shift in popularity. While there are baseball dramas like 42 and Fences, they generally tend to be on the lighter side. Baseball is oftentimes the vehicle for whatever point the filmmakers are trying to get across. A League of Their Own using it for female empowerment, Field of Dreams using it for the father-son dynamic, and Good Will Hunting using it to humanize a character. The parameters around the sport don't help it either. America's favorite pastime inherently gives itself this passive image. A game carried out across innings with no time limit and limited physical contact. Football, however, is the polar opposite.
Baseball is played on a diamond, in a park, the baseball park.
Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium, sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium.
Narratively, football and boxing especially are these two sports that carry such weight and tension behind them. Oftentimes they are rugged and vicious sports that produce dramatic and exciting finishes that make for excellent climaxes. A perfect example of this contrast would be something like For the Love of the Game versus Varsity Blues. Both feature the real games going on with the stakes of the games impacting the characters. However, Billy Chappell has the challenge of enduring this game, doing everything he can to pitch that perfect game. The film cuts in and out from the game to moments of his past, giving context to where he's at in the game and in life. Mox, however, has these more active challenges. The clock ticking away on the final game of his final season makes for a very compelling and engaging climax. The very nature of both games impact how the audience perceives the struggles the athletes are facing. Billy's challenge is passive and endurance-based. Mox's challenge is active and with a ticking clock element. It's not to compare which sports are better or anything like that. It's to give an example as to why filmmakers nowadays prefer football as a more narratively dynamic sport. When talking about the more violent sports you have to pick from, the compelling thing about boxing is that it works perfectly for character studies. All the conflict is contained in the ring, one-on-one with dire stakes. Life and death are potentially in the balance, as the violence in the ring can be used as metaphor for other greater themes. The benefit to football is that not only can you still have the violence of something like boxing, you can use the team aspect of the sport to tell more varied stories while still honing in on, let's say, the quarterback or the coach, or in this case, a bench player.
If you had a tenth of the heart of Rudy, you could have made All-American. As it is, you just went from the third team to the prep team. Go on, get out of here. Get me another tailback.
Okay, coach.
Come on, let's run it.
Generally, sports movies serve as vehicles for whatever story the filmmakers are trying to get across. The actual sport is not necessarily important. It's just window dressing for a story about a rise and fall, a team coming together to rebel, a father-son conflict, etc. The movie Rudy places football at the epicenter of all the narrative conflict. We establish a clear want and desire. Rudy needs to play for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish football team, but it'll be tough. He doesn't have the confidence, the athletic ability, or the grades. His friends and family don't believe in him. All these forces are encouraging him to just hang back and view his dreams as just that, dreams.
Chasing a stupid dream causes nothing but you and everyone around you heartache.
Of course, our noble and persistent protagonist pushes past that and starts his slow climb towards reaching his goal. The structure is very similar to a lot of the coming-of-age films we covered in our last video. Check it out after this one, some good stuff. Anyways, Rudy is essentially growing up or growing out of the town. His dreams and aspirations exceed the small town and the small mentality his family carries. Football is this goal that he can grab onto. It's the prospect of college in American Graffiti, or going to see about a girl in Good Will Hunting. It's these kinds of universal messages and themes that can let a non-football loving audience in. That's the thing about sports movies and movies about any real specific subject matter. Ultimately, the movies are not so much about the subject matter and more about the themes they present. With that said, Rudy is a different kind of sports movie. See, you have the examples of movies like Moneyball or He Got Game, where the sport could be kind of swapped with another. It won't work as well, but you could see a Moneyball-like story involving football or basketball. With Rudy, the very nature of football serves as a metaphor for what the character is going through.
Dick was an animal. I called him a maniac, a stone maniac.
What makes football different from any other sport in the world is that it combines different aspects of other sports. The skill of soccer and baseball combined with the violence and intensity of rugby and hockey. That combination creates this gladiator-like mentality in both the sport itself and the athletes. The athletes themselves understand the spectacle and draw of football, as that was what attracted them to the sport in the first place. The hype, the dancing, the theatrics, the antics, these components give football the character it has formed. Rudy would not have worked at all if it was baseball, for example. Rudy's almost suicidal drive to make it wrecks his body and puts him at risk. This carries both on and off the field, as he has to make sure he doesn't lose focus in class or at his job. Otherwise, he'll be tossed out of Notre Dame and essentially killing his spirit. On the field, he throws himself at his challenges, going up against men easily twice his size. The attitude and perseverance Rudy has going against the other players can be metaphoric for any of the great challenges we all face in life. He understands how unlikely he is to win. He understands he will fail many, many times. But Rudy persists. Through montage, we see trial and error, yet he remains committed to his goal and chugs along. It's also worth noting that Rudy played defensive end. He's not the quarterback or a receiver or a running back. He's not even a middle linebacker. He's a cog in the defensive machine, which only amplifies the story. Rudy's not looking for fame and glory. He wants recognition and acceptance from his family. He doesn't care about stats or being seen by all these people. His humility and drive ultimately give him the popularity as an ancillary prize, with the real prize being his fulfillment and self-worth being elevated.
Rudy, 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 Rudy.
What's interesting is that this is all found in a team setting. It would be a totally different story if Rudy was a boxer or a golfer. The validation wouldn't be the same. It would have to come from his rivals or just his family. Instead, he is one with the collective, one of a 52-man roster who is elevated above the rest for that one special moment. An example of how team sports can elevate the individual at times. However, it could just be a metaphor for team environments and working together towards a common goal. Am I reading into a movie about Notre Dame football too much? Maybe, but walk with me on this next one.
Can you help me?
Son, in 35 years of religious studies, I've come up with only two hard, incontrovertible facts. There is a God, and I'm not him.
What separates Rudy from even some of the great football movies like Remember the Titans, Any Given Sunday, and others is the spirituality aspect. It's not just that Rudy is a devout Notre Dame fan, but he is a devout Catholic as well. We see how his Catholicism is not just a part of his family life, but is a part of the push that gets him towards Notre Dame. While it is not the major aspect of the film, Rudy's spirituality comes up in little ways here and there and paints his relationship with D-Bob. What's more interesting is how, in many ways, Rudy's spirituality is intertwined with his feelings towards football. The level of reverence and appreciation he has towards the Notre Dame team, the former players, the coaches, etc. are obsessive. He loves these things openly and publicly. Plus, the movie never really bites on that. In a more cynical movie, Rudy would learn some lesson about caring so much about this entity that sees him as just another cog in the machine. In reality, he is rewarded for his fandom, showered by the love of his friends, family, and his new family.
Hey, you guys! My son's going to Notre Dame! You hear that, Johnny? Your brother's going to Notre Dame!
That lack of cynicism makes for a very earnest and thoughtful movie that gets Catholicism and football all tangled together, given how the movie shows both of these things. The stadium is treated as hollow ground. Rudy is enamored by the spectacle of the team. He goes to all these great lengths to appeal to the coach. Rudy views Notre Dame football in a godly way, but still has his roots in Catholicism to tie everything together. Perhaps the movie is making a point about the worship of football, but then the movie would not be so earnest. It's an interesting juxtaposition nonetheless. The Rudy character and iconography has a great juxtaposition to the world of football, the little man and the big man sport. His entire journey fits perfectly in a David-Goliath level conflict, where he must overcome these great challenges much larger than he could seemingly handle. It's a tailor-made, real-life story that is cinematic gold, complete with this great backstory and a perfect climax. As much as the actual game was a blowout, the filmmaking made the score seem meaningless. It was all about Rudy's moment and the journey we had all seen him go on. It's worth noting that Rudy was directed by David Anspaugh. the same guy who directed Hoosiers, another sports underdog story. As much as this could have been a generic underdog sports movie, not saying Hoosiers is by any means, David crafted this wonderful mood and atmosphere that sucks you into the story. You root for Rudy like you're a fan. The magic of Rudy isn't just about the magic of football, nor the magic of storytelling. It's somewhere in between, where a great movie happens. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe for more video essays. Comment your thoughts about the film and our analysis. Thanks again, and have a great day.